if they can't depend on having dependable power. And the congressman is on with us. I'll put him on the bottom row so you know. Congressman from the 2nd District, Tim Griffin, is with us. Hey, Tim, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can barely hear you.
All right, I'm going to get up closer to the...
There you go, I can hear you.
Okay. Tim, we just had Doug White on from the Arkansas Electric Cooperatives, and he was talking about these EPA rules that may go into effect starting in October and November, or will go into effect unless you all somehow stop them, that could double the electric rates of the average consumer. What's happening with the party and with you all about trying to rein in the EPA?
Well, let me ask you this first. Was he talking about the greenhouse gas reg or the coal ash reg? Did he say specifically, or you want me to talk generally?
He was just talking generally. He said that there were some specific regulations going into effect in October and November that would drastically affect electric rates if they proceeded.
Sure. All right, a couple things. First of all, I tell people, and this is absolutely the truth, the single agency that job creators, big and small, complain about the most is the EPA. And it's not that folks are anti-regulation, it's that they're anti-overly burdensome regulations. One is the issue of coal combustion waste, and that's probably what he was talking about. They have proposed some regulations in this area that is definitely going to increase costs, make it more burdensome for businesses, particularly manufacturers. And I am a co-sponsor of a bill, H.R. 1391, and that bill, if we could get it into law, and that's not going to happen probably, would prevent the EPA from regulating coal ash as a hazardous waste. That is one that we may see a delay in the EPA on. The one you're probably referring to is their attempted regulation of greenhouse gases. I sent a letter to Administrator Jackson in May on this, and I think this is the one that the folks from the Arkansas Electric Cooperatives are talking about. But I asked that they reopen their rulemaking for reconsideration. Also, we had a bill that related to this, H.R. 910, that I voted for. It passed the House in April, but the Senate has just sat on it. So we will see what happens on the greenhouse gas front, and I'm pretty sure that's what the electric co-op folks were talking about. But there's also the issue of what's called National Ambient Air Quality Standards that they are pursuing more controls on, and also something called the Boiler, BOILER, MACT, M-A-C-T rule. There were regulations drafted on that, and I'm telling you, in many cases, the EPA is not implementing laws that we passed. They are implementing regulations in areas where they couldn't get laws passed.
All right, well, Congressman, how do we stop that? I mean, you all control the purse strings. Can't you cut off their money?
Well, I'd say a couple things on that. Ultimately, if you wanted to take it as far as shutting down the government, that would be the ultimate. That's where you would end up probably if some sort of agreement was not reached. I don't think that shutting down the government over one regulation would probably. I don't think there'd be the political will to do that. I will tell you that this year's been funded as a result of the agreement, the funding agreement for the whole government back in March or April. The next couple of years are going to be funded through the process with the debt ceiling agreement. And so I think ultimately the best tools that we have in our toolbox, short of just shutting down the government, is what we've been using, which is writing letters, putting pressure on the administrator, and having hearings. It has worked on several fronts. We certainly cannot independently pass laws. We have to have the president and the Senate agree on that. And like I say, short of just basically shutting down the government over these regs, we have to rely on other things like the hearings and letters and what have you.
It would seem to me, Congressman, I got to take a break for the traffic, but I'll leave this here, and then we'll pick back up with you after the break, and that's this. If my electricity bill goes up double, if next year to keep my house cool I got to pay suddenly close to $500, everybody's going to hear from me then, and I'm thinking, pitchforks and torches may be in vogue at that point. All right, hold on us by 25. We just got a few minutes left with the congressman from the 2nd District. Glenn Gallis is here, Congressman. Let's let him ask you a question here on the Dave Elswick Show.
Hey, Tim. Good
hey,
to
Glenn.
hear from
I
you.
can barely hear you, but go ahead.
Can you hear me now? All right, it's almost like a cell phone commercial. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Here's my question. Here's my concern. We've got fuel prices rising, and that affects people's expendable income. But when you raise utility rates like they're proposing to do, it's going to affect the way our Kansans and Americans live. What are you guys going to do to squash or to begin the conversation talking about it now? Because I'll be honest with you, at the end of the day, when it comes time for the election cycle to roll out, and people's budgets have been affected, and the way that they live and the way that they eat and the way that they survive is going to change, it's going to affect the polls. How are we going to address it? What are we going to do to stifle the wave that I think is going to roll across America as we know this is going to happen?
Well, I'd say, first of all, y'all just might be starting now talking about it on the radio, but this has been, I didn't hear everything you said, but I think I get the gist of your comment. This has been on our radar for months. I'm looking here to see what month I wrote the letter. I wrote one back in February on that first issue I raised, and on the issue that the electric cooperatives worried about, I wrote a letter to EPA Administrator Jackson in May. So, and we've passed legislation on the floor related to this. We have voted numerous times to defund parts of the EPA that are causing all the problems. Of course, like most of the stuff we pass, it dies in the Senate. We've got to continue to tell that story so that people know that we've taken action on this, and we need our friends in the Senate to do the same. And folks ought to, certainly they're welcome to contact my office, but they ought to be contacting their senators too to make sure they're aware of this. I can tell you that obviously we cannot pass a law, a bill into law, unless we get the Senate to agree and the President to agree. And on things like this, very unlikely that that's going to happen. Now, 2011 funding's already done. 2012 funding is done in terms of the overall amount. But we will have some leverage in the discussions of what specifically will be funded. The debt agreement set the general amounts but did not provide the line items. But we've just got to continue to message this. To be frank with you, shows like this are part of the solution in the sense that you're informing people about things, and they can get and folks can get engaged because there's been so much about the debt and other things. Maybe folks aren't aware of this, but I can tell you that Arkansas Electric Cooperatives and others have been well aware of this for a long time and have been engaged with us on it, and we're going to continue to fight it. Like I said, we have had several different bills that we have voted on the House floor that deal with the EPA's overreach and defunding them. We have passed them. But obviously a bill is not a law. It's only a step in the right direction.
All right. I know that you got to run, Congressman. We appreciate the time that you had for us. We'll be in touch with you here in a very short period of time, all right?
Thank you all.
All right, thanks a lot. Congressman Tim Griffin, District 2, here on the Dave Elswick Show. Traffic.